So, I recently got started on a little bit of a project, and it wasn't until I posted a couple pictures on social media that I decided it was worth actually recording some content about it. I don't know why I thought nobody would be interested in this, because it is kind of a unique thing, and there might be other people out there that are trying to do a similar thing to what I'm doing here, and there's not a lot of content out there about it. I assume that's because nobody but me is insane enough to do this. So what am I doing, you might ask? Well, you've noticed there's no grill on my Jeep. Here, let me just show you. So there's my grill sitting over there. You notice it's missing some parts. That's because those are over here. Now this grill, apart from being black, is a little different because it's got some square headlights in it. Yes, I'm putting a YJ Grille on my TJ. So when I first got into Jeeps, it was the mid to late 90s, and at that time, what was most dominant on the streets in the Wrangler form or the open-bodied Jeep form was either the YJ or the CJ. The TJs were out, right? Like right around the time I was starting to drive, the TJ was popular, but it was the new thing on the streets. It was the expensive thing, and I couldn't afford one. So I had two YJs as my sort of intro to the off-roading world, one of which I owned for over a decade, and I did a lot of work to the thing, and in a lot of ways, it's really the reason that I'm in the sport the way I am. And I've always wanted another YJ. However, today, if you go look on Marketplace, or look on Craigslist, or look wherever for a YJ, they're all either a complete claptrap piece of crap, or they want 15 grand for them. And I'm not about to pay that for a 30-year-old Jeep unless I turn into some kind of a collector. So, what's the next best thing? Take the Jeep I already have and love and make it look like a YJ. At first glance, you might think that the YJ and the TJ Grille are actually really similar because they have the same basic shape and they fit on the same rough size vehicle. I mean, the TJ and the YJ dimensionally are actually really similar. And in fact, in the CJ and YJ days, you could just swap a CJ front clip onto a YJ, and a ton of people did that. But when the TJ came along, they decided to redesign the whole front clip. The curves are all different. So in order to swap this grille on, I'm going to have to deal with things like the fenders and the hood later. I have some ideas on how to get that done. But dimensionally, the TJ and the YJ Grille are actually really similar. And the way I've decided to do that, because there are some slight differences in the two, other than the shape of the headlights, is to cut off the bottom mounting stuff from the TJ Grille and graft it onto the YJ Grille. Now this isn't attached yet. As you can see, I'm still working on the right sizing and everything because the dimensions of the grills are slightly different. This is like an inch shorter than this one, and the way the grill is shaped at the bottom here, see how it's got this up kick to it here? On the YJ, that comes all the way out to the end, right? And you can see that that's different here. This, on the TJ, it kind of follows this. It doesn't go all the way up this high, it just goes like this, right? And that's to make room for the steering box lines. And over here I used it to run my winch lines. So I want to keep it because I want the winch lines to be able to stay there. But the other thing that's a big difference is on the TJ, there is this opening here, which the lines for the air conditioning, the hard lines, run through there, right? So they kind of go in there and through this plastic flap. On the YJ Grille, that was solid, so I cut that out. But otherwise, things like mounting for the radiator, that looks like it's the same. I'm going to have to transfer some clips over from the old grill to this one. And what else? What was the other big thing? Oh, the air conditioning. The AC condenser. You see it's got these stupid little rubber mounts. I had to order some because these destroyed themselves when I tried to take them out. But that mounts to the top of the grill in these holes here from the top on the TJ. The YJ doesn't even have holes there. There's these holes, but those aren't them. They should be like here, right? And I'm going to have to drill those, but on the bottom, mounts here. So what I'm hoping is, if I get the spacing between the top and bottom correct, I can mount the air conditioning condenser back on here where it was to begin with. Now, I even toyed with the idea of getting rid of the AC, but I gotta be honest, I kind of like it, AC. Maybe I'm a wimp. Anyway, so that's what I've gotten started on. And now I'm going to officially film it instead of just hitting it up on my phone. So, yeah. Once I got the bottom all mocked up, I realized that I needed a little bit of a spacer in between the bottom of the YJ Grille and where the TJ Grille bottom plate was going to mount. So I took a piece of rectangular tube I had laying around and I cut, I think it was 5/8 of an inch off the end. And then I cut that into two pieces that were shaped like an L. And then I tacked them onto the bottom of the YJ Grille. And this is where, this took up the slack that I needed in order to get the bottom plate from the TJ Grille onto the YJ Grille. And once I had that figured out, I took some measurements, and sure enough, the grill was exactly the height that I needed it to be now. I was using the measurements from the AC condenser mounting holes as my reference point, because those are the things that matter to me. Alright, so I have some cleanup work to do. It's the first time I've ever welded anything quite this thin, so I was kind of learning on the welder as I went. It came out okay once I figured it out. But that's that. Now the other thing, the other big deal here is there is a huge gap there. And that's there. What I did to disconnect the bottom here, or remove it, was I drilled through all of the pinch welds. Not pinch welds, you know what I mean, spot welds. I drilled through all the spot welds. Now look at how much gap there is here. What I probably should have done is like cut straight across and then attach that to here. But I'll just have to make up a plate or something to fill in that gap. Now luckily I had some scrap laying around from, it was an old steel cabinet door that I had from an old server cabinet that I just couldn't bring myself to throw away. So I cut a strip off of that was about 20 inches wide and about 3 inches tall, which was more than I think I needed. But I wanted to have some room to play with so that I could really get it together well. Oh my gosh, I just did all that without recording, guys. Okay, so what was I just saying? So I have the bottom of the TJ Grille attached at the corners here. I just welded that on. Like I said before, I had to make this grill a little bit taller than the YJ Grille was. That's what this gap here is. And I had to fill that in, of course. And that's because of this, basically. See how this down here is taller on the TJ Grille than it is on the YJ Grille. Also, these openings here are different, so I fixed that up. Right, that'll all get cleaned up too. Once I'm done, maybe I'll trim this down some so it looks nice. Maybe I'll put some tack welds there. I don't know. We'll see. But this here is my next goal. I need to put some welds across here. You can see my awesome job at sheet metal welding. I'm not a sheet metal guy. I don't have the finesse required, but ignore that. There's no hole there. But yeah, here's where I am. At the end of the day, this isn't like a seamless thing that I would expect some custom car body shop to have created, but it's good enough for me. Once this is done, I'm going to make some fenders, and then I'm going to probably, if I can get away with it, paint the entire Jeep a different color. When I do that, I'm going to, of course, fill in some of these welds and whatnot with body filler so they don't look quite so ugly, and then I'm going to paint the whole thing. Check it out. the hard part is done, but as you can tell, there's a bunch of work left to do. So this is the big problem with putting a YJ Grille on a TJ. That is that the fenders and the hood are totally different on the YJ and between the YJ and the TJ. So there's this big gap here. Now, maybe I could bend these fenders in some way to fit. Maybe I could make something to fill that gap. But what I intend to do is build some fenders, some tube fenders, that will follow the YJ Grille and come up to here or so. And then maybe, I don't know for yet if this will work or not, maybe I will be able to trim the TJ hood and not have to replace the hood as well. But here we are with the YJ Grille mounted, for the most part, in there. There's that AC condenser I was talking about, and of course I got to figure out the radiator and all that, but the radiator should bolt right up. What I'm hoping to do, I have a electric fan. I was going to mount it in this grill as a pusher fan. Then of course when I make the bracket to mount the pusher fan, I'm going to try to make a bracket that'll accommodate my radiator for the automatic transmission. And then that'll be right behind the pusher fan. And then that'll all be mounted inside the grill so that it's nice and secure. Instead, I used to have it zip tied to that, which was behind the grill slats in the TJ Grille. I could find a way to put that back in here and zip tie it on there again, but since I have it all out, it makes sense to come up with a better way to do it. But there you go. Of course, this has to be figured out. I think what I'm going to do is finish up this video, and I will make another video that talks about the fenders. So look forward to part 2 and maybe a part 3, I guess, when I build the fenders of this video. And if you're going to do that, you better subscribe. So hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Remember, folks, get out there and wheel, and I'll catch you in the next one.